We have Eddie, Belanger, Hunter, Swoboda, Alfie.
Tremblay moved up to the first row.
Tremblay.
First row. Big shot now. Experience.
Every year for the past 75, the Montreal Canadiens have posed for a team photograph. This year, for the first time, they've had a different kind of picture taken.
Larry.
Baseball players, though. Yeah. So why can't we?
Can they tim it up?
I haven't got a price yet. So, what? 6.
You didn't study for this thing.
Okay, look here, everybody. Chris, look here. That's it.
Their names from your father, who first heard them from his. Aurel Joliat, Howie Morenz, Rocket Richard, Jean Béliveau. For 3/4 of a century, they've dominated their sport as no team has any other.
Gel with gel today.
Going with the gel, Telly? Gonna say that greasy Italian.
Greg, in the first paper this morning, the coach said you're better than Ron Language.
Hey, guys.
They're gonna have too late. That's what he say.
They're gonna have Lutz's corner.
Hey, Lutz? How about Chaco? Lucky. Sylvain? Adi?
Bienvenue au Forum de Montréal et au match de ce soir entre les Nordiques de Québec et les Canadiens de Montréal. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
In all, the Montreal Canadiens have won 22 Stanley Cups. In the past 3 decades, one almost every 2 years.
The best Swede in the NHL, Mats Näslund. The best centerman was injuries for three weeks. Pierre Mondou. The best Perrignard is for sure, Mario Tremblay.
Mario!
He's looking fucking Larry.
What are you looking at? Oh, yeah, you should talk. Joe's strap around the face.
Oh, tell me, real.
5 again. 3.
Seasoned veterans. Yeah.
Slow. There's nobody chasing us. So the guy without the puck is like.
But you know what screws me up right off the bat? Is when you got it over there and then all of a sudden you pass it across. Now everything, if you just hang on to it and go in, then I can play you a lot better. I just cut you off so you can't pass it.
So that's why.
In French, they call the Montreal Canadiens tradition la ligne, the line, spanning the past 75 years through Bob Gainey and Larry Robinson.
Somebody be pushing them.
When I first started up and I came into the dressing room, my first day, I mean, I was scared stiff. I sat there. I was afraid. I mean, the first pair of shin pads I had were Maurice Richard's old shin pads, you know, and I felt shy to go over and ask if I could have a pair that fit me. You know, they were that much too small. And I find nowadays that if in the same situation, one of the hockey players, for a young hockey player, if he would come up, he would be mad and insulted that he didn't get a brand new pair. And they're much bolder, more outspoken, the kids of today.
210 pounds of dynamite with a 1-inch fuse.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, let's go. Oh, sorry, too close to you.
When Robinson and Gainey first joined the Canadiens in the 1970s, they were the Flying Frenchmen, on the verge of winning 4 consecutive Stanley Cups. Today, their teammates include a Swede, a Czech, and as many Americans as Quebecois. But they're heirs to the richest legacy in all of sport. No one knows the story better than this man, Aurel Joliat. He's 84 years old now, a retired railway ticket agent. But in 1922, Aurel Joliat was a young James Cagney in the uniform of the Montreal Canadiens. Just 138 pounds in full gear, he could skate, he could stick handle, and he never turned his back on a fight. Today, Aurel Joliat is one of the oldest members of hockey's oldest team. He still skates the ice of the Rideau Canal in Ottawa, still at his old playing weight, and he still says that all he's ever truly been is an athlete.
I played junior, intermediate, and senior city league, you know. And I was playing against and with fellows that were 30 and 35 years of age. And I was only about 16. My mother and father never told me what to do after that. So it was a great life. To be a little dramatic, or not dramatic, but a little rough and tough, said. I played my own way then.
Joliat was 19, playing amateur hockey in Northern Ontario, when he got a call from the Ottawa Senators of the new National Hockey League. General Manager Tom Gorman asked him to turn pro.
Well, Tommy, I said, how much are you going to give me? He said, I'll offer you $250 for the season, just as a spare. Spare very, very seldom got on the ice. In those days, 6 men played the whole game. So he says, if you're going out the door, he said, listen, Joliet, he says, if you don't play here, he says, I'll bar you completely. I said, thanks very much, Tommy. See you again sometime. The interview was no longer than that, about a minute at the most.
It was an era long before free agents in sport. And if Aurel Joliat didn't want to play for his hometown team, Tom Gorman could keep him from playing for anyone else.
He did bar me, yeah. He barred me. I wasn't allowed to play in the National Hockey League.
So it was that Aurel Joliat left Ottawa and headed west, to the prairies, where he got off the train in Saskatchewan. There, for the price of his $5 train ticket, he became the property of the new professional team from Saskatoon. It was a deal typical of Aurel Joliat's financial career.
I lived a simple life. I don't go for fame and prosperity. Of course, I always like to have money, but I don't like to spend money. I just like to throw it away.
6 decades later, Joliat says he sometimes wishes he'd stayed in Saskatchewan, found a real job, and forgotten all about hockey. But that's not what happened. In the early 1920s, Montreal was the Paris of hockey, home of Le Club de Hockey Canadien, founded a dozen years before. Nicknamed the Flying Frenchmen, they were led by a star forward named Newsy Lalonde. The Canadiens had won their first Stanley Cup in the middle of the First World War. But by the 20s, Lalonde was past his prime. Team owner Léo Dandurand needed a scorer to complement his great goalie, Georges Vézina. And he'd heard of a man out west named Aurel Joliat. It was the fall of 1922. Montreal convinced the NHL to let Joliat return from exile and traded Lalonde to Saskatoon to get him. And as fate would have it, the Canadiens' first exhibition game was against their All-Stars new team. Montreal was still the Paris of hockey. Saskatoon was not. And Newsy Lalonde wanted revenge.
But anyway, I made one rush up the ice, and wasn't in condition yet. I was puffing pretty hard, you know. Lalonde edged over, you know, and he gave it to me right here. And the first thing I knew, I was laying flat on the ice, out cold as a cucumber. There were quite a few guys that could hit with the stick in those days. Don't forget, you had to keep ducking a few times.
Since the time of Lalonde and Joliat, few names in any field have meant so much as the Montreal Canadiens and the Montreal Forum. What La Scala is to opera, the Louvre to fine art, that's what this place is to hockey. And seldom has it seen more dramatic events than those inspired by the Canadiens' first great star, Howie Morenz. He really wasn't a flying Frenchman at all, Morenz. He was from a small town in Ontario where they called him the Stratford Streak. At the age of 20, the Canadiens paid a $45 tailor's bill, and Morenz came to Montreal to play center for Aurel Joliat.
He was a marvelous hockey player, instinctively marvelous hockey player. It was a picnic to play with Morenz. I remember playing games with Morenz. I walked off the ice after playing 60 minutes. Felt like going out and playing another game. Marvelous, you know, so fast. God. Yeah.
Howie Morenz became the best hockey player of his generation. He and Joliat were hard-living, hard-playing men who were together for 12 years and won 3 Stanley Cups. If it weren't for him, said Morenz, they wouldn't write so much about me.
It worked out very good for a while, until Morenz had his leg broken in this game.
It was early in the new year of 1937. Morenz and Joliat were aging, but Montreal was still fighting for first place. 6 days after this dressing room picture, Howie Morenz and the Canadiens played Chicago at the Forum.
He made one of his famous rushes, and he went to turn and he skidded and he ended up, and his right foot went right into the end boards and it stuck there, you see. And this big guy playing defense for Chicago, Earl Seibert, fell on him, his leg right there. You'd think he'd have done it on purpose. No kidding.
Morenz's leg was broken in 4 places. The doctors said he was through for the season. But no one could guess what would happen next.
Finally, I come back from Boston, went up to see him, and he was in a stupor. He was, well, to tell you the truth, I said, this isn't Morenz at all. He had faded away. In about 10 days' time, he'd, tell you the truth, I didn't know. Unbelievable.
Howie Morenz never returned to the Montreal Canadiens. 40 days after the game against